when we say a word, right? When we say a word, what we tend to mean is something like this: A equals, right? Hello.
Oh, that's right. It'll be in quotes.
Boom. That's exactly right. And the quotes I said are how you construct that string literal, right? So if you say I want to put this hello HLUG, this is in quotes. The second you start that quote, Python says I'm constructing a string literal, and until I see the end quote, that's what I've got here. That's the only thing I've got to work with. So inside of this, if there was an A, which there's not, right? Okay, so we have this method here of taking in something you're typing into the source code, right? Whether it's a number, whether it's a float, which is going to have just a decimal point in it, or whether it's a literal, which is a literal string, which is going to have the quotation marks. All of these are setting variables, and we're setting variables on the right-hand side of that equality sign with literals. They're things we're typing that are the same every time. So that's pretty simple, and we went over that in day one. Now we're talking about here that with strings, we essentially start them off with double quotes. It's not the only way to start off a literal in Python. You see up here, we can do single quotes too. If we come back into Python, and I said D equals test, that also works, right? So we have this idea of double quoting and single quoting. Both of them construct text, and we can assign that to any variable. So when we introduce this concept of escape characters, we get into, okay, if double quotes mean that we start a string, right, and we're gonna save that off, like we're doing right here, hello HLUG. What do I do if I want to have hello on one line and then HLUG on the other line? Right? How would I put that into the text? Does anyone know the answer to that?
\n.
\n, right? So if we have a \n, we have two things going on there. We have two different characters, and then they're apparently special, right? So if I said here, let's say here, no, this n isn't special, right? If I say something like that, I have a string, and what that string equals is, no, this n isn't special. Let me come up here and we're going to do that again so we can see it at the top, right? And I set that by using this command right here. Now here's the thing. We just said if we wanted to put in a new line, we use this /n. So if we come over here and I put a /n right here, right, and then I look at it, well, that's because it's doing this stupid thing. Let's see here. There we go. Okay, and we print it out. What we get here now is rather than having before, let me do that before and after. There you go. We look at the first one, we just have a regular n, and when we print it, we see the regular n. And the second one, we have a /n, and when we print it, we don't see any n at all. It's totally gone. And the reason is, when we insert that slash right here, right, what Python ends up seeing is it says, okay, you're constructing a string, and inside of this syntax we're using, this is now a special character. That n is no longer just an n. It's a new line character. So there's complexities with how we can build strings and how we can put special.
What if you put it in with no quotes around it?
You can put it in with no quotes. The quotes there were totally not needed. If I do this right here, nothing has changed, right? Yes.
So what if you were like putting something in, like, what if the string was like a URL, where you might reasonably have an n followed backslash?
You can escape the backslash too. So that's one of the things that the book is also going to hit on very quick. There's different ways of doing that in Python, but one of the very common ways of doing that is simply to escape it. So the question was just asked, how do we make sure that that backslash stays a backslash and it doesn't go away? And we can do that by putting another backslash forward. So we're starting to see complexities emerge, right, with this idea of keeping text. And that's a big part of what this chapter is. We have the ability to put things on a new line with this new line character. We also, has anyone here ever seen the /t?
For tab. But
for tab.
Hang on, before you move.
Sure.
Is that C? Is there such a thing as a string embedded in a string that is the single quoted string embedded in a double quoted string?
There is nothing like that. In that
Okay.
string there,
That's why.
the single quotes had no special validity whatsoever. They didn't do anything special. They were just like any other character. So it looked like a string in a string, but inside of a double quote, we'll also point that
So
out.
why wasn't it preserved then? If it wasn't doing anything.
It is preserved. You see it right here? Here's the first
Oh,
one.
sorry, gotcha.
Here's the second
gotcha.
one.
Ah, I didn't. All right.
I wanted
Yeah.
wanted you to see the new line disappear.
That's right. No, sure. I didn't. Yeah, got
Got
it.
it?
Got it.
Does everyone see what just
Got it.
happened? I want to be sure that in case anyone else is confused about this, I chose this here, the new line, so you can actually see where the last one was. So I said here, no, this, and then I said the N, and then the N became a new line character with the forward slash. So in the first copy, when I printed it out, we can see both of those single quotes. They're right here.
Yeah.
But in the second copy, when I put the forward slash in front of the N, now suddenly it changes the dynamic. That's no longer an N, it's a new line. Now we see the first one here, and we see the second one over here, right? And then this character that was over here, which would normally be an N, that became the signal for the computer to write the rest of that crap on another line, right? So that's how that works. Inside of double quotes, you have a couple of characters that are special, right? One character that's not special is a single quote. There's nothing special going on here. The single quote inside of a double quote is not special because it's just like any other character. The only character that's special is the double quote, which is going to tell it this is the end of that string. Do we see that? Any have questions about it? We call it nesting, right? But it doesn't matter what's on the inside of this. What this is looking for here is another double quote. So we have inside of it this guy, but it's totally insignificant except for this, the new line character. That's what we're trying to show on. Okay. And if you come down here, I actually took it out entirely because I didn't want it to be confusing. And now what you see when I print this out is that it's totally gone. Whereas up here, we could see that last apostrophe, single quote. Here, there is no apostrophe because I don't have it set. So all we see here is the new line, right? There's nothing here. Then we come down. Okay, so when we get back to the text there, we have these escape characters that they're going to introduce, and here they are. And there's not too many of them, so it keeps it pretty sane. So we have a single quote, which can be escaped. We have a double quote, which can be escaped. We have a tab, a new line, and a backslash. So we already had a question from, missed the name?
Miriam?
Miriam. We had a question from Miriam about encoding a URL. If we look up here to the top, this automate the boring stuff with Python, this is, normally it's like this, right? You see these HTTP // whatever, or backslashes in some of them. You can put backslashes in the browser direction. If we look here, if we ever want to put one of those in a string, we can just use two of them. And it'll actually take the backslash and escape it. So let's come down here and I'll show you what we do with that. If I say backslash equals, and then I just put one of them like this, right? Let me show you something else. Let me present that in a different way. Let me show you how this is all the deuce and why it's there. We have this concept. I said when we start off a string, we can use a double quote character, right? Well, what if I want to put a double quote character in a string? Look at that, right? Let's say I want my string to be like that. This is a double quote, and then I want to show the double quote character in the string, right? The problem with this syntax is, I told you when we started that the string is looking for a double quote character to end the construction of that literal. So here's the first one, and Python's going to say, okay, this is a string, and it's going to start constructing it. This is a double quote, and then it's going to see the less than sign, and it's going to see the string, and it's going to go up. That's what I'm looking for. I'm done. Right? So Python has to have a way of saying, this double quote is not telling Python to stop the string. Right? It's not the end, it's the end terminator for the string. So how you do that, if you don't have it, right, what ends up happening is Python waits for it. Right? It'll say something like this. This is a double quote, invalid syntax. Because the string was officially over right here, and now I have this stuff. Python doesn't know how to handle it. If I escape it, all I do is I put in front of it a // right? Now if I look at it, I have an actual string. And that's what I wanted, right? I wanted this to be the string. This is a double quote. Okay, so we know now how to put a double quote inside of a string. We escape it. Now here's a question by extension, right? If I look at this and we come back, now I know how to escape the double quote. What if I want to put a backslash in the string? Right? So what if I actually want to show here the backslash? Here's the string I'm making, right? And if I go print backslash, you can see here that I lost this, right? So you can see that it says, this is a double quote, and there's my double quote, but what about this character right here? What if I actually want to display that character right there? How would I? That's exactly right. You have to have one more, right? So now we have a character, we had a problem, two more. That's exactly right. That's exactly right, two more. We had a character, N, and we had a problem in that if we want to show that character, we have to escape it. Now we have this special character that says, this is an escape. And if we want to show that character, we have to escape it as well, because it joins the class of things that have to be escaped. So let me come back here, and I'm going to say, like that. Now I've got what I want, right? Now I have a double quote that I put inside of there, and I also have the backslash, which I'm escaping. Now that may look complex. That is the most complex thing you can do with escaping stuff, right? So I wanted to show you why we needed the first one. We need the first one because we can have characters like the double quote that we would have to escape, because we're starting the string with a double quote, and we're going to end it with a double quote. We want to say that's not the end. Now if you want to escape one of those escaping characters, how do you do it? You escape it, right? So in both cases, you can see this is what this functionality is accomplishing. It's saying this character in front is special or it's not special. Flip to me. Okay. So we had the question about the URLs from Miriam. There's one other method which we can take a URL and we can actually escape it. And that's using these things called raw strings, right? So raw strings handle all of that stuff for you, right? A raw string completely ignores all escape characters and prints out any backslash that appears in the string. For example, type the following into an interactive shell. Now you can see here, we are prefixing that single quote with an R, which makes it a raw string. This is a Python thing. I don't know of any other language that does this, but it is kind of cool. And that means that all of this stuff inside of it is literal. That's a special way to construct a string. So I said double quotes construct a string, single quotes construct a string, and if you prefix it with an R, you get a raw string. And whether or not, I don't know whether or not you can do an R in a double quote. That would be, I think you can. Yes, you can. Okay. So anything that is prefixed with an R is going to make it a raw string. Okay. Multi-line, what's up?
R doubles code it left like some code like go back to the input signal there.
Go back to the
input, the double code, you see the results and pass this code is single coded.
Oh, you mean here it's single?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a good observation. So here's what we have here. When we create a string as a raw string, right, or as any type of string, that doesn't necessarily impact how Python is going to render that string. So we have two things at play. I'm going to explain this, and this is also not all that complex of a concept after you wrap your head around it. When I take a variable and I say a equals 5, right, and I print out that variable, Python just says 5, right? But if I want to say a string is 5, right, a equals 5, or for simplicity we can say foo, right? Now when I want to print it out, Python has to tell me in some way, shape, or form that it's foo, right? It has to tell me that that's a string. So regardless of how you construct a string, Python will always tell you it's a string with single quotes, right? So if I have a equals 5, and then I say print a, I get 5. If I say a equals quote 5, and I say print a, I'm going to get the same thing, 5. But if I'm evaluating it, Python's going to tell me what type it is, right? So now if I do a equals 5a, now notice there's no print command. Python says 5. But if I do a equals quote 5, like this, single quotes, right? So there's two things I'm showing off here, and I want to be careful that we see it. I'm showing off the difference between printing, which is telling Python, throw this on the screen, versus evaluating, in which Python will always tell you what type that is, right, with those construction characters, right? And the same thing could be said for, I want to say it's also true for printing a float. I'm 99% sure. So if I say A equals 5.0, right, and then I say print A, I think it just prints back 5. Nope, it prints back 5.0. Let's try something with more zeros. There you go, right? So Python always shows you that that number is a float with point and one insignificant character, but it won't continue, right?
Even if it was like 5.03.
No, then it will continue, right? It's an interesting case. Then it will continue. But if I do, let's see here. Come on in. Oh, come on in. If I do something like this, A equals 5.0, 5.1, right? And then A equals A minus 0.1. Now Python won't just say 5 because A is a float. It's going to say 5.0. It will always display floats with the 0.0. So that doesn't mean that, and it'll always print them with the 0.0. Okay. So to be clear on that, there's two different modes. There's printing something out, which will not show the single quotes, and then when you drop it in. Yeah.
Don't you work here now?
Not yet. So multi-line strings with single quotes. This is a really, really cool piece of functionality, and I actually like this. This is one thing that I wish Python would. I wish other languages would adopt this. I happen to be a big fan of it. Python has the ability to take a string, right, and to set it with triple quotes rather than a single quote. And the advantage here is that you can now make it multi-line. So if I wanted to say something like, here, let me show you what we can do here. A equals foo, n bar. Okay, so if I take this as a string, right, what do you expect this to display, Eddie?
Foo and then bar in a second line.
Foo and bar in a second line, right? And that's exactly right. Surrounded by what? Single quotes. Exactly, right? Actually, no. When we print it, you'll see foo and bar in a second line. When you evaluate it, it's going to show you the new line, right? So this is one thing that I think is super annoying about Python. I happen to not be a fan of this one myself. When you evaluate code with a new line in it, it catches me because you only do the REPL stuff, right, when you're live coding or you're testing. When you're programming, you don't use this much at all. But when you evaluate code with a new line character in it, Python doesn't actually show you the character. It doesn't render the character. It just shows you the escape. So when we print it, now we get the new line.
Isn't that technically wrong, though? That string representation is a single quotes, but that's escape.
No, because Python allows you to escape something in a single quote.
Oh.
Right? So if I did like foo, bar, baz, see? So yes, that's a C thing there, but yeah, not even. And every other language with Python. So what I want to show you here is we have this concept here of, okay, if I want to have this string, right, foo new line bar, I can do it like this, and then I can print it out, and I get foo new line bar, right? Now, if I wanted to do that all with just simple text, Python has a unique piece of functionality called a triple quote. So I can do triple quote foo. Now I can literally type the enter character. Then I can type bar, and I can end it with a triple quote. Now if I print this out, I get the same thing. So you can remember the /n when you set the string, and then Python will, when you print it out, render it, right? It'll show you that new line character. Or you can use triple quote, and then it'll actually just remember what you're typing in here. And this is kind of useful for when you're typing documentation, because when you type documentation, you can do something like this, right? You can say my doc equals triple quote, and then I can say hello HLUG. This is Evan's demo, right? And then I can end it, and now when I print it out, you get everything just as I typed it. And I didn't have to worry about the new lines and making it look all ugly. And it's a good way that Python will allow you to do that type of stuff. So Python, when you do this, these triple line strings, you will see this all the time when you're documenting stuff in Python. And it works out really well. It's one of their better ideas. Okay. So let's hit this one right here. This is pretty simple what this is going to do, right? We're going to get Dear Alice, then we're going to get a comma. We're going to get 2 new line characters, and then we're going to get Eve, and then apostrophe S. We're escaping the apostrophe. Why are we escaping the apostrophe? Because otherwise it would terminate the string, right? We have the first apostrophe here that's starting the string. If we don't have this escape here, this is the end of the string. So we say it's not the end of the string. This single quote is an apostrophe. S, cat has been arrested for catnapping, comma, cat burglary and extortion. New line, sincerely, comma, new line, Bob. Right? So this is actually a whole letter, and that whole letter exists in one line. And that's what it looks like. What is going on with my copy and paste? I see what's happening. It doesn't like my copy and paste. Yeah. Okay, so we'll copy and paste it manually. Paste this. Okay, let's do this. Paste that one, and then come back and paste this one. Will that work? Who wants to take bets on it? There we go. Dear Alice, Eve's cat has been arrested for catnapping, cat burglary, and extortion. Sincerely, Bob. Okay. All right, we have pizza, and well, let's do one more because it's still way early. Pizza got here super early today. While the hash character, so we have this concept of comments, right? We talked about this in the first class. We said this is one of like the most fundamental components of syntax for a computer program. A comment, right, does nothing at all for Python. Comments are for you. They're like your scratch pad inside of your code, right? So if you want to, you can use these comment characters, and you can write stuff that has no meaning to Python whatsoever. Now what they're going to do is they're going to show you that a multi-line string is often used for comments that span multiple lines. So if we have a comment here, we can just do triple line, and then we can write a string and end it, and this will not do anything to Python special. It's like a string inside of your code. So what does that mean? If I take code right here, and let's say I write down, this is a comment, right? That is actually not really technically a comment. The book is calling it a comment. I'm going to explain to you what that is, right? If I write a piece of code that says this is a comment, right? This is a string. That does mean something to Python. But because you're not assigning it to a variable, and because you're not doing anything with it, it's essentially a string in what we call void context. It is doing nothing. And because it's doing nothing, you can kind of think of it like a comment. Now, in Python, specifically, this triple line comment here that he's calling a comment, this is actually documentation.
There we go. I don't know why didn't the A one work? That was weird too. That should actually work. Okay, interesting. That surprises me. But here, if we do help string, it'll tell us all of the methods that we can do with the string, which is really convenient, right? So we can take it, and all of these methods we're seeing documented in the book, these are all documented inside of Python too, and we can look them up anytime we want. But there's one other method, which is super, super easy, and I also talked about it in the first class. Does anyone remember what the method is? That's right, tabbing. Right, so the tabbing method is my favorite. So Python has a bunch of these things that we're getting into here, and we'll notice that some of them are predicated with is, right? The is functions, you'll find these in most languages. We call these predicates. So anytime you want to test to see whether or not a string is uppercase or is lowercase or is in any way special, there's a bunch of them here. They call them here isX methods, right? Is alphanumeric, is decimal. We're going to go over them all in a bit. But the point that I wanted to show is that anytime you forget about what that list is, you can just take any string in your Python utility and you just type A and you slam on tab a bunch and you see a total list of all of the things you can do with it. It's super simple, programming with tab. And now if you want to find out all of the things you can do that are what they call isX methods, here's the cheat. You type in A, you type in is, and then you slam on tab. Now you just see the selection of things that are the predicates you can do with an A, right? So that's really simple, because now you can say, okay, here's what Python makes available to me, and everything else I have to build myself. I want to know whether or not I have a digit in the string. I can use isDigit, right? So this is kind of cool. We talked about we can have A equals 5, and we can have a equals quote 5, how do I know whether or not the string a is quote 5? I can use a, is, d, and then tab, tab, o, digit. Right? So that's there for you. Now, if you take something else and you say 5.54321, whatever, I can do a, tab, tab is digit. Now what does that return? False, because it's not a digit. There's a point in there. That makes it a decimal. And we saw that one up right above. Actually.
This function only for this like tab, I mean this tab function, is that working the other like ID or like other?
Does it work in the Azure IDE? I don't know about the Azure IDE. It should work in any decent IDE.
How come his decimal doesn't agree?
That's a really, really good question. I don't actually know the answer to that one. And I'll plead.
It's a string.
Well,
Well, the answer to that one because it's some IDE programming. It depends very heavily on which IDE.
Yeah, I think so. Even the tab function,
What is it expecting with this is something I've never even used. Returns true if there are only decimal characters in S, false otherwise. Okay, so that literally is just testing for one character. I have no idea what his decimal does. There's your bonus question. Figure out what, Ed?
Try A equals 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's just basically checking to see if each character is a digit.
So in what case is it different from his digit?
So a decimal includes a period.
But there's no period in 1, 2, 3.
I know, so it would be a digit and not a decimal.
because they both true.
Type in
1, 2, 3.
1.2.
Well, I did that. That's what I thought, because that's the same behavior that it's not doing. A equals 1.2. A is decimal.
But digit, is it digit?
Well, it's a string method, right? So it should, the quote shouldn't bother it. But if I do like a equals 1.2, I would expect a dot is decimal not to even exist, right? Because now it's not a string. So now I can't, there's no, I'm tabbing, it doesn't work.
So Evan,
Yeah.
the way that I read the documentation when you pulled up the help very quickly was that is decimal basically is sort of like the more than one digit version of is digit.
Returns true if all characters in S are digits. Returns true if there are only decimal characters in S. And there is at least one character in S.
If you call is decimal an empty string, it will return.
Okay, what does Stack Overflow say?
It's there are differences, but they're rare. It's only with like Unicode characters such as like the special square number.
The special.
Or a fraction character, like 1/2.
And stuff like that.
Yeah. So
This is fascinating. They ship this so complex. Intuitively, I thought the same thing James thought. It makes sense to me, right? If you have if it looks like a float, maybe his decimal would return true. Apparently, that's not what's going on here. I imagine that Stack Overflow question has an ass ton of upvotes. Am I right?
it has 25.
That's it? Okay. There's a duplicate somewhere of a question with 5 million upvotes. All right. So yeah, that's the more exciting things about live coding and figuring out a language. The is digit sounds to me like it's super useful. The is decimal also sounds like it may be useful in some weird ass. I don't know. I've never had to use it, so take that for what it's worth. Upper and lower. Upper is very simple, right? So is upper tells you whether or not every single character is uppercase. There are no tricky things with that one. It makes sense, and it works for the most part. Now, upper, what do you think it does? If is upper is going to test for it, what is upper going to do? It's going to make it do that, right? So that's really simple. So if I give upper a lowercase character, right? Let's take it over here, and we'll say down here, upper, hello, HLUG. This is lowercase, right? God dang it. What? First thing, this is super annoying. Okay. There we go. Hello HLUG, this is lowercase. So what upper does is we give it a string, and no matter what that string is you give it, right? You call that method on it, upper, and it's going to return to you that copy that is all uppercase, right? The opposite is upper is going to, I think you can just do it like that, is upper, it's going to return true. So the first one, what's up?
What about supper?
Yeah, what about supper? There you go. I supper. It's the apple supper. Note that these methods do not change the string itself, but return a new string value. If you want to change the original string, you have to call upper or lower on the string, and then assign a new string to the variable where the original string was stored. Okay, so that's what I was doing at first that it didn't like. All right, let's go ahead, and we are now at 6:52. Let's break for the pizza because I don't want it to get cold, even though it's way here early, and then we'll pick it up. Okay. All right. Peter, are you ready? All right. I'm going to give Peter a couple of minutes. He's got something he wanted to talk to everyone about, and I said I'd be happy to volunteer it. Without further ado.
Evening. I'll be quick. I've spent most of my time teaching and learning natural languages. It's not exactly like this, but of course there's some parallels. And sure, what they always have us do is perform the language, hear it, talk it, that kind of stuff. And you've encountered yourselves, a tutorial will tell you, don't just read this or listen to this. Take your fingers and go ahead and do it. You know, get there. Well, one of the problems that you encounter is that, of course, this doesn't work, your mouth does. If you know how to touch type, then it's a lot easier because, as they have been able to show, we don't use as much of our neurological resources when we're touch typing. But the thing about messing with programming languages is that their syntax and their morphology or tokenizing are a lot more complicated than just wiggling your fingers, and none of those basic keys will do. So the first thing I'd like to propose is that you do something I've done over 30 years ago. Get yourselves to touch edit. Find a simple meta key. Keyboards with 2 space bars offer a nice option, the left-hand one. Your left-hand thumb drops, and all those keys are there for you to program to do stuff. And if you work it out, I would suggest not mnemonics like B is backward and S is space, but rather something a little more logical like geographic or intuitive, comfortable. You can get to the point where you're going like this, and the cutting and the pasting and the back and forth of the, all of it's happening without a mouse, no F keys, no cursor keys, not even the number pad. You just have a simple attitude, if you will, and you wiggle. And it gets so far along, it can, that in a funny way, you almost feel like part of it's on its own. This is autonomous. You get a sentence that's awkward, too many long words, and they seem to be sort of elbowing each other side to side. Well, that's of course not really happening, and really you're in charge, but you're not in charge in a way that's taking a lot of your attention. What if, having done that, and this is where I leave you, what if there were a way that we could get together and come up with some customized little key gestures, like the one for defining a function. You just do something, wiggle, and all of a sudden there would say def, space, parentheses, colon, and then the cursor would pop back to where you put in the name of the function. That for all kinds of syntactical gestures. Or what if you had a complicated recursive procedure, and you could just wiggle, and the whole thing would be parsed out for you. Or anyone, dozens and dozens of other things. I'm thinking that if we don't do this, that Futeracy is going to have a hard time coming up with a verbal behavior which will handle all the things that we have to do to be human and all the things we have to do to be cybernetized. Anyway, that's all. One of my neighbors said, hey, there's something like that that works with sign language. And I invite you all, if anybody has any thoughts on this, to join in. That's all. Anybody?
Very cool.
Oh. Would you have at us with?
Yeah, you were describing using non-surface or some tools to be able to just move your hands around. And, there's objects out there looking at sign language, either sensors on each fingertip to look at the position of their hands to translate that into text on a screen, or using cameras to look at hand movements and translate to that. I believe that's what something. Yeah.
Actually, there's.
I'd be interested in showing you Vim and some
Yeah.
other tiling window managers that can do all of this essentially at the home row. So once you get used to moving across ASDF, GH, JK, and L, you can more or less totally do all of your editing, cutting, pasting, moving between files, folders, all of that just from the home row. It takes some getting used to, but a lot of the auto completion, the error checking can be done through a few programs.
Okay, so it's already happening.
Yeah.
What did you call it?
It's a bunch of different things, but Vim, i3, and I think you can do some stuff like that in Emacs too. It's just what you want to invest your time in getting used to. There's also a bunch of plugins. Me and Dr. Muscles are working on using LSP with Vim.
So could you actually do things that rock a piece of the syntax of a program?
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
Let's.
They're little macros in effect, really.
Yeah, and actually you can make macros on the fly. So if you
Yeah,
do
yeah,
something
yeah.
very specific,
Let's have.
I'd be interested in getting a group together.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a lot of people that are interested in that kind of stuff. I don't want to take too much of the time from the class. So let's have Q&A and like outside talk, or like next lunch. You know, we can all get together on that and hit that up. All right, very cool.
Can you start the screen recording?
Yes, good call. Let me get off of that answer, because. All right. I hope everyone enjoyed their pizza, unless you're eating the pineapple pizza, in which case, I hope you didn't enjoy it. I hope you learned from your experiences, and I hope you come back next week educated and enlightened. By the way, I'm wondering if when I actually put on the lapel, if that camera records the whole operation and how awkward that's got to look for other people. Very cool. Are we ready?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay. So what did we previously cover? We previously covered these is methods, right? And we're going down, and I told you right now, let's say you remember, okay, all of these things, right? We call them predicates. You don't have to remember names like that, but they all start with is. How do you find out what they are, right? Anyone remember that? The other method?
Slam on tab.
Slam on tab, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at the slam on tab method, because we like that method a lot. So I'm jumping into the editor, a equals foo. What are all those is methods? A dot is tab tab. And then there they all are. Numeric, printable, space, title, whatever. We have them all right there. Okay, the other method is help str. And there we go. We have them all right here. And we can read about them. But as we just found out, and I'd like to make a special note here of that, we have this character which is numeric, and then we have is digit, right? Is digit, is numeric, and the descriptions between these two are very confusing. So Shelley found out that what we can do is we can go to Google and ask Google what the difference is. And then Google will most likely transfer you to Stack Overflow. And what you normally want to do on Stack Overflow is read them. And as you're reading them, think to yourself, is this a good question or a good answer? And if it is, you hit the upvote button, okay? That's how we all give back. And if it's not, you can hit the downvote button and tell that person they suck. And that's part of the process of making sure the useful and correct answer kind of like filters through to the top, okay? So actually, you probably don't want to say you suck because now they have special rules against that. That's right. You gotta candy coat it just a little bit more.
You can take atmosphere at a rapid rate.
That's it. There. All right. So we have these predicates. We've done some of those. There's nothing special there. We're gonna go down here. Dun dun. These are all pretty simple. Starts with and ends with. Okay, this is very cool. If you want to know whether or not a string starts with or ends with something, we have a method here, starts with and ends with. Now, you may also forget about these, right? If you do forget about them, you can come back here. When you type in A and you hit tab tab, you're going to see them here. A starts with, right there. And then likewise, there's ends with. And E, tab tab, ends with, right? And if you ever forget them, you can just do help, string, and then starts with or whatever. If you just remember start and you type in help string, you'll eventually find it. It is in this document. Starts with right there. Okay. So all of these are going to do, and that's really the takeaway from this chapter, is that we have a lot of different ways to work with strings because you do it all the time. If you have the string hello world, call starts with hello, call ends with world, there's nothing at all complex about it. Join and split are slightly different. So with join and split, what we do is we take a delimiter, right, like a comma, and what we can do is provide that to a method called join a whole array, and join that array. This is kind of tricky. If you come from a different language, you're going to want to remember this or make special note of it because it stung me on multiple occasions. When I want to join an array, I want to call array.join, right? So there's two ways you could think about modeling this. You could say I have something like let's say we create ourselves an array, A equals foo, bar, baz. Now we have an array of 3 strings, right? You can't call a.join, right? That doesn't exist. Though that's how it looks, I believe, in Ruby. What you do is in Python, you create the delimiter, and then you call .join, and you give it the array, right? And then it's going to join all of your elements in the array by whatever delimiter string you called the method on. So they switch it. Just make note that you start off with whatever you're joining with, and then you provide all of the things you want to be joined into that as an argument. You don't do it the other way.
You always get a list. I mean, you always get a string.
You always get a string when you call join. That's right. Yep. So the order there isn't more logical one way or another. You just have to remember it. It's just one of the burdens of the language. So here what we're doing is we call abc.join, and we provided this array. My name is Simon, and then I get back my ABC name. ABC is ABC Simon. The space is probably the most used one. Space.join. My name is Simon. You get back a sentence. My name is Simon. Yeah, there's not much to it. I always remember it by it not doing what I want. My name is Simon.split, right? So here what we do is we take a string and we call .split, and then what you get back is you get back an array, a list of all of those different words as elements inside of that list. So if I say my name is Simon.split, right, what I'm going to get back is my name is Simon in word form. Now, split takes, just like join, it takes an argument. So you can see here, one of the things we're doing is we provide the delimiter to join, right? We say delimiter.join, and when we have a delimiter, we can also provide that to split. So here's the inverse of this. So here we take my ABC, name ABC is ABC Simon, and we say split on ABC, we get back all this stuff. On the other one, we say abc.join, we provide the same array, and we get the string back. That technically makes these inverse functions, right? One of them undoes the other. So you can call split and join 50 million times and get back the same thing. It's a great way to spend a day. Moving on, we have more triple quote stuff. So now that ugly string we had before, if you remember the whole catnapper thing, the letter, this is how that could have been written with this triple quotes. So quote, 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 dear Alice, how have you been? I'm fine. There's a container in the fridge that's labeled milk experiment. Please do not drink it. Sincerely, Bob. And then what we call is we say spam.split. Now let's look at this. This whole thing here is a string, right? And I want to be very clear about how this is working. When you create a string with the triple characters, triple quote, right? If I say A equals triple quote, and then I say hello HLUG, and then I give it triple quotes, who here wants to tell me what is in A? Someone give it a shot. Who do we got? Hands up. Come on, someone. Eddie already called on you. Anyone else? Zach.
New line below HLUG new line?
That's right. There's actually two new lines there. There's a new line here and a new line here, and then there's one here and then there's one here. Right, so if I show it, A, you're going to see it. New line, hello HLUG, new line, new line. The reason why I wanted to show you that is because I want you to understand that when you hit enter on a keyboard, magic is happening. Right? When you hit enter on a keyboard, just like every other character on a keyboard, your computer tells your computer, I just received this signal. And that signal is just like all others. It's the new line signal, right? It's a special character, just like the A or like the B or like the C. There's nothing different about it. It's a character. And your computer renders that like this. So when we do the triple quotes and we have new lines in there, those are there. They don't go away. It's just because you can't see them explicitly and they're not escaped doesn't mean they're not there. The new lines are precisely what is responsible for showing the stuff on a different line. Python knows that, and when it reads them back to you and it displays it here, you can see them there. You had
Windows mode.
What's up?
Windows mode. /R.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into that right now.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a huge distraction from where I want to go. Yeah. And not to mention, no one should be using Windows anyway. Okay, yeah. So what we have here is justifying text with rjust, leftjust, and center. So we have methods of printing text. We can use print, right? Well, what if we want to print text and we want to pad it one way or another? We can do that. If we look here, rjust is right justify. Or, as you're probably more used to thinking of it, right align. What we do here is we give it a word hello, and we say we want to right justify that to essentially 10 characters. So now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters in hello, and it's going to put 5 characters in this string here. Below it, we have right justify to 20 characters. We know there's 5 characters in hello. That means there's 15 spaces here. Right justify is going to take whatever you give it, and it's going to pad it with that many spaces. But alternatively, you can provide a different character, which we do here, right? And it'll change it from spaces to something else. So the space is the default, but you can provide it an override. So here we have right justify 20. We give it hello. We see hello on the right, and we're going to see 15 asterisks. I'm not going to count them. The same thing here with ljust, right? Ljust moves it the opposite direction. Now we have hello on the left, and we have 20 dashes. This is a way where you can make, if you've seen all the old school terminals, you know, and people messing around with that in the pre-web days, this is how you would do that. You would do those kind of displays, right? Now you use CSS when you typically make stuff, or use HTML and that kind of thing. But this is how you used to actually format things for printing and display. And it's still kind of cool because it looks nice, right? Hello center 20. Center's the same thing, except it figures out where the midpoint is, and it calculates what you need on the left and what you need on the right. You could do all of that yourself. This is a lot easier. It does it for you. So we say hello, center 20, and now what do we have? We have hello in the middle, and we have whatever 20 minus 5 divided by 2 is on the left and the right. Because that's exactly the math it's doing. It says you want 20 characters, therefore I have 5 characters provided. I have to take 15 characters and split them. Half of them on the left, half of them on the right. Okay? Here we do the same thing. We provided an override of dashes, and now we have essentially a title looking thing, right? All right. These methods are especially useful when you need to print tabular data that have the correct spacing. Open a new file editor and enter in the following code and save it as picnictable.py. So I have done that. We have an editor ready to rock. And for those of you that haven't checked out an editor or an IDE, I have suggested before PyCharm. That is what we are going to be using, or I'm going to be using to show you, because it's very simple, very user-friendly. A lot of what Peter was talking about today, you find that type of stuff in more advanced editors, and that's what I'm actually used to. I'm not used to PyCharm. So if you want to know more about those editors, come when we're not teaching classes, because that's the kind of stuff we love to geek out about. It's unfortunately, I don't want to blow people's minds and add extra complexity. So with PyCharm, I popped in my code right here. This is a scratch pad in PyCharm. And then I just go run, and I hit run. And then what it does is it actually just outputs what they want. So we can see what we're doing here. We've created a subroutine, and this is a very nice looking display. Can everyone in the back see that? It's at the bottom. And I hate that the TVs are so low, but I don't know what else. So right here, we can see that we have sandwiches. And we have the end of the sandwich line very cleanly lined up. So we can see sandwiches are left justified, and we have the dots, right? And then we have the numbers over here, the tallies, the totals. These are right justified, and we have spaces. And we can see this thing up here at the top. This is picnic items, and this is centered, and we have dashes. Now, this is a really good time to explain to you how center works. When we went over here, and I said, and I'm impressed, I'm always impressed sometimes when people ask me questions and they're the gotcha stuff, you know? I like the gotcha stuff, but I'm always sometimes impressed when I get away, when I sneak off, and no one asks me the gotcha question, and I'm like, really? That was nice. So what we have here is...
what if it's an uneven number?
Aha, right. So there's the gotcha that I was expecting when I said that. I spelled it out for you. Okay, I said hello was 5 characters, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I said we centered it to 20. And I said the formula for deciding what we're going to do there is we take 20, we subtract it from the length of the string we give it, hello. Now we have 15, and now we're going to take 15 and divide it by 2 to figure out what you put on the left and what you put on the right. Well, what's 15 divided by 2? 7.5. So now here's the gotcha. Someone was supposed to raise their hand and go, well, which side's going to get, you know, the extra character? Or how do you have half a character? Those are the 2 obvious gotchas there, right? So I don't actually know the answer to that, to be honest with you. I don't know how Python handled that, because that's insane anyway, right? It's a very, like, it doesn't matter in most cases, and it's minutia.
Is it 7 on the left and 8 on the right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so here's what we're going to see. Your guess was 7 on the left, 8 on the right. If we come down here to this one, right, this new example we have, right, we can see that picnic is also centered. And we can see that the extra one is on the left. So it would be 8 on the left, 7 on the right.
Well, the example was 7 on the left, 8 on the right, unless I miscounted.
No, it is.
On the PDF.
On the PDF? Oh, in the PDF, you mean?
Hello, you can see what the equals.
Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. Is this the one we're talking about?
Or the line below. It's easier with the equal sign.
Aha. Yeah, this actually, 7 on the, that looks like 7 on the left, 8 on the right. Let's try this and see if the book just bullshitted this and didn't actually run this code. What do you think? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have no idea. That is interesting. Well, why it's interesting to me is that the command center here quite clearly. Did we use center here first though?
Picnic items, that's an even number of characters, right? 6.
Clearly not, because you have 3 on one side, 2 on the other. Anyway, we're not gonna worry about that, right? This is the stuff. We'll geek out about this some other time. You know, next time I count my blessings when I didn't get the gotcha question, I'm just gonna let that shit slide. That's what I'm taking away from this one.
Wait, he defines.
Okay, so here's what we're doing. We have this thing called print picnic, and it takes an items dict, a left, and a right. Okay? What we do is we print picnic items, and then we center it. We add left and right, and then we say we want the characters to be the dashes. That's what's creating this, and it's what's creating this, right? So here we say picnic items 12, 5, right? So we're going to take 12 and 5 is 17. We're going to subtract picnic items, and we're going to put whatever the amount of extras are on the left and the right. We can see here 3 and 2. So that's how that works. And then we say for KV in items dict.items. We went through this before. This is how we're iterating through this dictionary. Now K and V, you'll see this all the time. And by the way, K and V are the choice letters. I don't think they actually need to be longer than that. This is a highly disputed thing in programming. What do K and V stand for?
Key and value.
Key and value, right? When you see K and V, you should know right away that's just the one-letter mnemonic for key and value. So for each key and value in items dict.items, print K, left justify, left with, and then the dot. So the first argument is the left with, right? 12, we're left justifying sandwiches to 12 with dots. And then what we're adding to it is, we're adding to it the string of the value, right, which is 4. You want to make that a string. We're right justifying it to the right with, which is 5. So here's the question. If I wanted to have more dots here, what would I do? Increase the number on the left with, exactly, right? So if I come down here and I say 15, and I rerun this, you're going to see these dots go further. And there we go. See how they expand up? So we've created something that renders the things as a table. And all it needs as a table is a dictionary and how far you want both of those columns justified. Right? Okay, does anyone have any questions about that code? Cool. All right. And that's the code right there. Picnic items, there we go. Okay. Removing white space with strip, R strip, and L strip. Okay, so we talked about here, if we look at it, right, we can use L just and R just to add white space, right? In other languages, what do we call this? What's the more common word than R just and L just? Does anyone know? Not a line. Pad, right? What's up? Pipe? Piping? Patterning. Patterning. Is it patterning? That's exactly right. Patterning. Patterning is the more. That's what HTML calls it. It's what SQL calls it. It's what pretty much everything calls it. Python calls it justifying. So whatever you want, it doesn't matter. But the point here is that we have this method called justify, which is going to add crap to whatever we give it. It's only ever going to add it, right? And it's going to make it that many characters wide, and then fill in the other side with whatever the padding is. There's something that will remove the crap too, right? So what removes it? What removes it is trim and space. So if we take something, strip and R strip and L strip. So if we take spam and we give it hello world, you'll see that we have stuff on the left and stuff on the right. We can put that stuff in there, we can create it with center, right? Center is going to take hello world, it's going to put that spaces on the left and the right. How do we get rid of them? We call strip. Strip removes them. It strips those characters off of that string. We have L strip, which is just going to strip them on the left. See how we have the extra character here on the right? See how it still exists? So it doesn't go away. The right characters stay with L strip. And likewise, the opposite is true. We have R strip here. We have the right characters going away. There's no characters over here, but there are characters over here. Okay? So, and here's the other catch too. You can actually strip out non-spaces, right? Now this is a feature that exists. It's cool, but it's one of those features that you'll probably never use, right? It's just not practical. You won't be getting something like this where that's useful that often. So here we have spam, and we say spam, spam, bacon, spam, egg, spam, spam, and then we say spam.strip. and we have AMPS, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to pull off all of the characters that have AMPS in it. And what you're left with is this. All of the characters that have, let me rephrase that. This is the cue, on the ends. So this is why this isn't that useful, because that's a really, really special use case. We have here 4 characters. It's going to look here and say, okay, do we have an S? Yes, therefore drop it. This is a P. P is here, drop it. A is here, drop it. M, here, drop it. Keep going. It keeps doing this until it gets to B. Right, when it gets to B, it says B is not in this list of characters here. B is not in this string, which is a list of characters. So it leaves B. And then it keeps going on until it gets, and then it starts on this side, right? Here on this side, we have all of these characters again until we get to eggs, right? Eggs has a lowercase s. This is not in this list. We only have an uppercase s. So it's going to cut off these 2, and it's going to cut off these 2, and you're just going to get this thing in the middle. This is cool. This is entirely not useful in my opinion, but yes. Now we know how that works. You will use strip a lot. Strip is useful, but it's useful for pulling off things that make sense, like spaces. I don't think I've ever used it with more than one character. I strip off space characters. I don't strip off actual characters with it. Okay. So now this is something else I wanted to go through here. We have this is the first time in this class that we have ever had import anything that wasn't a core library. So here,
before we move off the strip,
sure.
Is whitespace the same as a new line character or a tab?
Is whitespace has new line characters? It includes new line characters.
So you would have just a strip with and just for whitespace, if it has a new line character, it would strip that as well.
That's right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so we have here the first example where we're importing something. We're importing paperclip, right? So to do that in PyCharm, and here's my ability to teach you PyCharm, which is absolutely minimal. By the way, some people here actually use PyCharm all the time, and for those of you that do use PyCharm all the time, don't ever hesitate to help me out with this thing, because I feel like a fumbling monkey when I'm playing with it.
It's not the program.
Thank you, my friend. 1 point for not missing a beat. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we go down here to File, and then we go down here to Settings, right? And now we see the settings for PyCharm. Now what you're going to do is you go down here to the project. And when you go to project, you go to project interpreter. And then after you get to the project interpreter, you can go down here to add on the right-hand side. Okay? And from this point, you can search all of the packages in Python Universe, and there's a lot of them. Now, here's the good news. This is easy, and you can do this all in the IDE. So if you don't know how to use a command line, this is convenient, right? And it lessens the amount that you have to learn. Here's the other good news. If you do know how to use a command line, or you want to learn how to use a command line, it is way easier than remembering all of that crap I just did. So if you want to know how to use the command line, we can do that later. It's literally pip3 install -- user module name, right? So, but yes, this is the Python way of doing it. And for people that are scared from the command line, this is totally fine. So you would go down here and you would type in paperclip, PYPERCLIP, and then you would hit install package. Now, I've already done that because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do that in front of everyone. This has actually fooled me before, so I wanted to make sure I had the module for what we're going to do. But you do that, you hit paperclip, you hit install package, and then PyCharm does everything, and it comes back and it says to you, you have the module installed. And that is such a powerful thing. Like, after you learn Python, I would say 80% of the code that you're going to be using at the very least is going to be code you don't write. And that's where it all starts. So the real power of this, one of the reasons why I think that this book is going to pick up and it's going to become such a badass book later on is because it's more willing to teach you that. What other code people have written and how you're going to use it. Because that's really where automate the boring stuff kicks in, right? In some of the other classes we've done, if you've had the misfortune of taking them and enjoying my presence for 6 months, you will know that we have not done too much of using other people's code. So this is a cool thing, and it's definitely the source of power for these languages that have big repositories. Okay, so I have PyCharm, and I have this working. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this piece of code that they have here, and we're going to copy it. And I'm going to paste it into PyCharm. And I'm going to delete these things because that's dumb. Home delete.
I think you can hold like Alt or something to do it vertically.
I know how to do it in Vim. Will PyCharm like that? No, it's moving a window.
Window manager took over.
Let's try Alt. No, down arrow doesn't work. Whoop. That's doing tabs. Nope. He's trying to geek out with PyCharm, and he's right. There's definitely a way to do this. I don't think he's right about how to do it. Okay.
I think your window manager is safe.
Perhaps, which is why this is a lot of fun. Okay. So we do import paperclip, and this tells Python that I want to bring in someone else's code, that I'm too lazy to write the whole world myself. And then what I'm doing is I'm saying paperclip.copy, hello world, right? And then you can do paperclip.paste. And what I think paperclip.paste does is it's going to, if you look here, when he runs paperclip.paste, it actually returns the string that's on your clipboard. So what he's showing you here is how to actually manage your clipboard. Okay. Paperclip is probably, it's an interesting name for this. Python users like finding ways to inject Py into everything. Okay? So it's, I don't know, it's weird. But yes, this is essentially copy and paste, right? This is telling your computer, you're writing a program that knows how to copy and paste. What he's trying to show you is, if you learn Python, look how easy it is to take what you copy in your keyboard. So this is really useful. Let's say you're browsing the web and you copy something, and then you normally do the same shit with it each time. Like you take it and you paste it into Word, and then you fix it up, you delete the spaces, you change a word in it, and then you have to copy it again and you paste it back in a web form or something like that. You can see how these workflows happen quite frequently. When you have a workflow like this, you can use paperclip to help you out. So here we copy hello into the copy and paste buffer, and then we paste it. So we're going to run here Scratch 4. What's up?
So on the far right, there's that green play button. No, higher up next to the eyeglass right there.
Yeah, but it didn't like that, see?
Oh no, I know, but you keep going to the drop-down menu. I know if you do above the green button.
Okay, this is more fun here. So I installed the module, which worked out fine, but the module doesn't want to run with Linux. I hope this example works for you. Paperclip, read the docs.io. Okay, so this.
I actually resolved that one in PyCharm.
Copy URL. You resolved this stupid error with the paperclip thing?
There's another, I don't remember what it was, another module.
Is Xclip, what about that?
Oh, there we go. That's what I need to do. I need to install one of these types of things on it. Oy.
You can't find your clipboard.
Install XL, Xclip. Which one's better? Which one do you use, Robert? Xclip, that's the one I want?
It's the one I know.
Okay. Let's see if I break your thing here, because this is going to be fun.
You can't break my thing.
Yeah, that's what you think.
Let me rephrase that.
It's called Xclip?
Yeah.
Dun dun.
Kernel panic. Oh.
Yeah, right? Just what I need. Okay. So, installing stuff. There we go.
Where was the module install screen again?
You mean for PyCharm?
Yeah.
Okay. For the paperclip thing?
For the paperclip.
In PyCharm, or
yeah, in
okay,
PyCharm.
okay, in PyCharm. The one you told me I was an idiot for. Now we need the idiot's expertise. Okay, file settings, and then after we do file settings, we hit the project that we have on the left-hand side. Then we're going to hit project interpreter. Then we're going to hit the plus sign. What a fun joy this is! And then we search for it right there in the center. And then we hit install module, install package.
Yeah, hers looks different. You want file settings? Was it import settings or?
I did file settings, and then I went down under project.
It could say project structure.
On Mac, I found something similar, preferences for new projects. There's project interpreter in there.
Yeah, things
Yeah,
can.
that's it.
Okay.
Properties for new project.
Properties for new project, if you're following along. Okay, very cool. So I just installed whatever it wanted. Let's see if it still complains. And it didn't complain, so we're good. Let me come down here and say print paperclip paste. And then I bet I see what I copied. Hello world. Okay. So this is where it's cool. Let me come down here and I'm going to see where it says process finished. No, let's take something better than that, right? Let me come over here and I'm going to copy this. Not implemented error, right? Totally random. I'm going to right click copy. Now if I come over here and I delete the copy command, paperclip should have access to it. So now I would expect it to actually say right here, not implemented error, because I copied that. Haha. Okay. So that's how you can make Python work with your copy and pasting mechanism in your computer, right? So now you can build a program and you can tell your boss all he has to do is copy whatever crap he wants to process and run your Python script. And your Python script can read that and do whatever it wants with it. Okay. So we come down here, automate the boring stuff. We see here now we can also paste. That's how we're getting access to the stuff we copied. And we're going to script that. Okay, so now we're going to do this thing called the password locker. This is the example in this book. And this is how I think the book structures itself moving forward, right? Where every different chapter, rather than just simply giving you tasks to do that are abstract, you kind of start to work on tasks that are more like useful. Even though I would not suggest you to use any of these in the real world. They're teaching you how to program Python with tasks. So we're going to create something here called the password locker. And here's how that password locker works. It takes a task like email, blog, and luggage, right, or whatever you want to give it, and it stores your incredibly complex password on the right-hand side. So this is, what do we call something that is constructed with curly braces? Anyone remember the name? Dictionary, right? So we're creating a dictionary data structure of passwords with the keys set to email, blog, and luggage, and the values set to your password. Now what he's doing is we have it set to where it handles these command line arguments, right? So you can see here, argv1 is the first thing you provide to an argument on the command line. Let me show you how this works, because some people have no experience with the command line. This whole thing is going to be foreign. Okay, if you have no experience on the command line, here's how it works. We have a command. This is the echo command. This is the simplest command line command there probably is. With the echo command, you can feed it an argument, right? And all it does is print it out on the screen. So I say echo, hello, and then what does it do? Prints out hello. Hello is the first argument to the command echo, right? So if I give it two arguments, hello, hello, prints them both out. Takes the first argument, prints it out, takes the second argument, separates them with a space, and prints them out. That's all echo does, right? We are going to make a command that works similar. Our command is going to say password, whatever, right? And then we're going to give it a name like blog, and then it's going to come back and tell us our password. So blog is going to be the first argument to that command. So if we look here, we access the first argument of that command with this thing called argv1, right? So we do this, and what we're doing is, if we don't have one argument, we input this. We input that the syntax, copy account password, requires you to have an account, right? So here's how this works. Let me be very clear about it, because I don't think the book is spelling much of it out. There's this thing that your computer has called sys.argv, right? argv. argv, the very first thing in argv is usually the program's name, right? The second thing in argv is the argument, the first argument you've given it. So if you look at argv0, I believe you get the program's name. If you look at argv1, you're going to get the first argument. We have this syntax here. Python, and then our Python script, and then whatever it is the account is that we want, right? So what we're going to be doing is, when we give it an account name, it is going to copy the password into our copy buffer, right? And then what we would be doing is, when we're browsing the internet and we get to our email site, we would just Control-V paste it in, Does that kind of make sense to you? You're going to see it as we develop it. Okay. So let's come down here and I'm going to show you this one more time. We take this. Let's pop this stuff here. Now we're getting into something else I don't know how to do. How do you provide an argument to something you create in PyCharm?
I can show you.
Who knows that?
Well, there's several ways to do it.
Okay, here we go. I have just copied and pasted all that code.
So you can go up to the Scratch 4 on the top right. There's a drop-down menu. Then click Edit Configuration. It says Parameters.
Aha. Okay. Very cool. Learn something new every day. So here's what we have. We have this script right here, and we can run this script. And if we run it, we get right away this, copy account password. It's complaining we're hitting this because we have in our code this. sysargv is less than 2. Right? It's less than 2 because it only has one thing in it, the name of the program. What we want to do is we want it to pass that part. So we're going to do exactly what Robert just said. We click on Scratch, we go down to Edit Configuration, and we're going to give it a parameter like blog. Then I hit Apply, and I hit OK. And now when I run it, I don't have that. You notice how it's not telling me that anymore, the usage thing? So now it's getting that argument, and we can continue with it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look here. We're adding this code that's in bold.
Wait, that didn't work for me. Once you go into Scratch.
So are you at the point where you can run code in PyCharm?
Yes.
Okay. You hit the Scratch on the top right, and then you go down here to Edit Configuration, and you're going to type in your parameters. Yeah. And then you go Apply and you hit OK. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add this code in bold. Now what does this code in bold do? Let's go through this once as a class before we actually run it. We say for each account in passwords, paperclip.copy passwords account. Print password for account copied to clipboard. Else there is no account named account. So we can see here that passwords is this big dictionary we've created. So we iterate through it, and for each different account, what we're going to do is if the account we provide here, this isn't iteration, this is actually contains, I'm sorry. We have the account we provide in the first argument. We save this as a variable account. Then we say if that account is in passwords, right? What we're doing here is we're saying if it is email, blog, or luggage. We're testing for containment. Does this thing that we have, our list of all of our passwords, when we provide the argument, is the thing that we provided in that, right? So remember when we set the parameter to blog, what it's looking for is blog in this. Does that make sense to everyone? So we have 3 things here, only 3. That means if you don't put one of these 3 things in here, your computer program isn't going to know what to do. We're testing for that here, right? So if you were to put something else inside of that parameters list, like house, this is what would happen. There is no account named house, right? But because blog is in that passwords list, what we're going to do is we're going to copy into the paperclip that dictionary's password for blog. And we're going to print out to the screen password for blog copied to clipboard. So now I'm just going to take this code right here. We're going to copy this. I'm going to go into the program, paste it, and I'm going to run it. And it says password for blog copied to clipboard. Now all I would do is I would copy it and I could just paste it anywhere. If I come up here and I paste it, you're going to see the same thing. Look, blog, and here's the password, right? So here's the idea. The idea isn't that you do this through an IDE. I just showed you how to pass a parameter through an IDE. The idea is that you would run this code just like this. You would say Python, and then our script, which is pw.py. You can see it right here. And you would give it the account name, and it would run it. Right? That's how that's supposed to work. So we're developing in an IDE, but this is how this code is supposed to be run. So then this new code looks in the password directory for the account name, it finds it, and then it copies it to your clipboard. Okay. So now we're done with that project. That's our little password manager. There's another project we have, adding bullets to wiki markup, right? When editing a Wikipedia article, you can create a bulleted list by putting each list item on its own line and placing a star in front of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create something where we essentially copy this list right here, and then this is what, after we run our program, our copy buffer looks like. So why would this be useful? We can copy a list that doesn't have these asterisks before it, and when we paste it, we can have something like this. So here's what we do. Bullet point adder. We're importing paperclip again. We say the text is whatever's on the clipboard, right? And then we're going to do something here. This is a to-do. He's showing you that there's supposed to be code here that's not here. And then we're going to copy it back. So there's a cycle here. See what's in the clipboard, do something with it, copy it back to the clipboard. Okay? And you can see it here as we develop that program. So now we get whatever's in the clipboard. We split all of those lines, because the clipboard just gives you one thing, one piece of text. We're splitting all of those lines on a new line. And we say for each line in, and we go through all of those lines, right? Now, how many people have seen this here? Range length. This is a Python thing. You see it all the time. What is this doing?
How many lines?
It's
Of the generator to get a generator of
That's exactly right.
a 0 to the number of lines.
Precisely. Exactly right. 100, right? So let me explain to you what that means, because we haven't introduced the term generator, I don't believe. A generator means that when we run this thing, length is going to tell me how many lines I get, right? So if I say here, if I have, let me show you, we're going to break it down, and just to keep it fresh in everyone's mind. If I say here, let's jump into Python, and I say A equals, and then I want to say length of A, I get 3. Length is going to return how many elements you have in an array. It's very simple, right? The problem is Python needs a mechanism to count up to that number, right? It needs a way to do that. So Python, by default, if you wanted to say count to 3, you have to have a mechanism to do it. Range does that. So if I say for I in length A, right, and then I say here print I, right, we get the integer object is not iterable. It's telling you I can't iterate. For is what we call iteration, right? So for is going to take whatever you give it, and it's going to cycle through it, doing something with everything inside. For says to you, I can't iterate through 3. Length is returning a 3, and I can't iterate through it. The generator and an iterator, for our purposes, and we're not going to go further into it in this class, are the same thing. What the generator is going to do is when we say range length A, this tells Python I need to create something that can iterate over a range of 0 to 3. So now if I do it, for I in range length A, print I, now I get 0, 1, 2, right? Now this is convenient because this is the indexes for that. So length returns to you how many elements it has, and range will generate to you something you can iterate over with all of those indexes. Does that make sense? Okay, so what we're doing here in this Python code that we're looking at is we're saying we want to iterate over the lines, right? But we're not going to get a line inside of the line. We're going to get an index number inside of the line. So if we're going to get an index number, that means we have to use that to get inside of lines. So you see here lines I, that is an index number. We're saying for each I in range, loop through all of the indexes in line. Then what we're going to do is change it. We're going to say the lines I equals, so now we're overriding that element in the lines array. We're overriding that element with a new one. We're adding it with an asterisk plus lines of I. right? Now here's the reason why we're doing it. Let me show you something here. You may wonder, well, that's a lot of work. Why do we have to use indexes anyway? Here's why you have to use indexes anyway. I have something foobar baz, right? If I don't do that whole nonsense with the range and the length like they're doing, if I just do this for element in A, right, I can print out all of these elements. But how would I change them? To change something, you have to have an equal sign. What's going to be on the left-hand side of the equal to change the elements in that array? The answer is you can't, right? You can't change elements by iterating over the different elements in the array. So what you're doing here is you're grabbing an index, and you can change the element with the index. Does that make sense to you? So here, if I want to change foo right here, what I need to do is I need to go A0 equals hello HLUG. Now watch what happens. A, hello HLUG bar baz. I can do that because I set A0 equals to this new text, right? You see that? That should be the aha moment. I can change the first element of this array by indexing it with 0 and then rewriting it. Yes?
Can you, on your for E and A formula or code block, can you not just say E equals whatever you want E to equal?
It's a local copy of E.
Okay.
It's not the actual E itself, right? So if he's saying, if I come down here and I say for E and A, right, can I say E equals hello, right? And will this set everything in A to hello? And it won't. And the reason why it won't is because if I do this for E and A, and I try setting E, I'm setting the local copy of E, right? Every time I go through that loop, this array, I'm setting hello HLUG to E. I'm changing the value of E, but I'm not changing the value in the array. I'm changing the second value of that I get. I'm saying the second value is hello, but I'm not changing the second value in the array. You need to change the value in the array. To change the value in the array, you have to provide to the thing on the left-hand side of the equals where it's at, right? You have to index into the array and say, I want to change that. So here's how we do it. We say A, and then we can say 0, and then we can say whatever we want. And now we've changed the first value. So I'm just trying to spell it out so we understand why everything's happening. Because if you don't know why they're doing this, you would ask precisely the question that was just asked, right? Why can't we just say for I and E, E equals, and then, asterisk space plus E? Why won't that work? It won't work because in that case, E would be a copy. So you iterate through that array, and you get a different value of I each time, and then you change the value with the index, right? That's precisely why we're doing what we're doing. Okay, and then after we do that, what we're doing is we copy the text. So let's take this code, right? We're going to copy all this code, and I'm going to paste all this code here, and then I'm going to run it. Now here's the question. Now that I've run that code, if I hit paste again, what am I going to get?
Same text is copied.
No. Aha, the star, right? So if I hit paste again, of course it's not going to work because I'm live coding this and everything's got to fail. Let's see here, run.
Hypercode is copying the value in the text.
Yeah, I don't know why that actually didn't work. Does anyone want to take a crack at why that's not working? Text copy, hypercode copy text. Oh wait, here's why it's not working. It's not working because he's copying text, and I think what he should be copying is the lines. So he should have here text equals and then new line dot join lines. That's what he's missing. Okay, now I can say paperclip.copy text. Okay, now if I run that, I should be able to paste it and get the asterisks. So there's actually there's a bug in that.
It's step 3.
Is that step 3? Ah. Okay. There we go. Okay, that is step 3. That's why I like to reread it right before I teach the class and not a week before. Okay. So there we go, step 3. So we're doing precisely that. So we just figured it out, live coding it. The thing is right here. This is exactly the line that we had to add, right? So we have to take all of the lines and we have to join them on the new line. So if we didn't have this line here, we would never have changed text, right? Text would have been the result of paperclip.paste. And then we would essentially be copying what we just copied. So we changed text by using a new line and saying we want to join all of these things in lines that we just changed with a new line. And now it works. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on any of the stuff we did with strings? Because these practice questions will be really short. We'll be done in hopefully 10 minutes.
Why did argv index 1 as 1 and not 0 as 1?
Because computers are always passed, the very first argument they get is the name of the program they're running. So argv0 would be the name of the program.
Oh, okay, all right then. Yeah, so it does follow the rules.
Import sys.
That's what I wanted it to do.
So if you're running it in a REPL, it's not useful. The thing is that if you run it in something that doesn't actually have a name, then apparently it sets it equal to an empty string. You know, it's not useful. But if you run it in something like this, it would work. What's up?
You want to explain why?
Because it changes the name from idle or Python or whatever to the empty string.
No. Why would the first argument be the name of the program?
It's the API for exec.
Yeah, it's the API exec xv or whatever. That's a very.
It's for programs that have multiple entries. So you can have a program that you soft link and you come in as, you know,
a different
less,
name.
more.
Sure. Yeah.
And you're executing a different name, but it's the same program.
I'm going to leave that part off for now. Yeah, but I do agree. Yeah. Okay. So we have here, what are the escape characters? We just remember what escape characters are. Who wants to give it a shot? Escape characters.
It's a character that allows other characters to be in the string that wouldn't normally be in the character.
That's right. Or for them to have a special meaning where they wouldn't otherwise have a special meaning, right? So we have a special character /n, right? And what that is actually going to do is it's going to be a new line. And if we didn't have that escape character for n, right, or before it, then we wouldn't have a method to actually say this is a new line, right, and not just n. So it designates that the thing that comes after the backslash is special or not special. The opposite is true, right? However you would normally interpret it. So we have here, what do the n and t characters represent?
New tab, new line, tab.
New line and tab, exactly. How can you put a backslash character in a string? Another backslash character, right? And by the way, I'll tell you something else. I've been doing this forever, and I still cannot remember backslash and forward slash. The Wi-Fi password I can do.
Thank you.
Yeah. If anyone has caught that, I've been corrected on that numerous times. But someone told me one time that you have to picture a person leaning on his back. And I every time I look at it, I'm like, maybe, yeah, kinda, but it's weird. Okay.
Backslash is under backspace.
Oh, that's a good one.
What is it?
Backslash is under the backspace.
Backslash. That's gonna work. That's gonna work. I like that. Backslash is under the backspace. I think you just ended my horrors about confusing this. Yeah, I had. That would make sense. So now I'm just going to call that the backy part of the keyboard, right? Very cool. Yeah. And I think part of the problem is when you get into computer, especially if you're self-taught, you do so many things wrong until you meet someone else who knows how to do them, especially with pronunciation. It's definitely awesome. The string value Howl's moving castle is a valid string. Why isn't it a problem that the single quote character in the word howl isn't escaped?
Double quotes.
Exactly.
What he said.
What he said. I like that.
Ditto.
So we have what he said and ditto. If we start with single quotes, we have to escape. If we start with double quotes, we don't have to escape. Easy enough. Computer only needs to know that it's not special if it is otherwise special. If you don't want to put a /n in your string, how can you write a string with new lines in it? Triple quotes. Right. Or raw string, yeah. What do the following expressions evaluate to? Let's H? E. That's all right. You're batting really high today. You should have your head up high. Jumped the gun a little too quick on that one. Okay, hello world. Hello. What about this one? Hello. Same thing. You don't have a start. We know to start at 0. What about this one?
Hello world.
Hello world. Hello world. So we skip to the third. Skip the first, the second, start at the third. Right? The first character is inclusive. So you skip the first index, the second index, and then we start at index 3. No, we start at the second element. This one always, so the way Python's doing this, we skip the first element, we skip the second element, we skip the third. No, here we have 2 L's. That's why you guys are screwing me up on this one. Hold on a second, let me explain this. Okay, so here, we have 2 L's in this, right? So we are skipping the first L. We skip the first character, which is the 0th index. We skip the second character, which is the first index. We skip the second character, which is the third index. No, the second index. The second index. We start on the third index. Start on the third index. Ranges are always inclusive of the first, well, they should usually, they hopefully are. They're usually inclusive of the starting point, and they're exclusive of the ending point, right? That's almost always the case. Okay. So what do the following expressions evaluate to? Hello dot upper. The uppercase one. Hello dot upper is upper. True. That's exactly right. And true is a? Boolean. Boolean, exactly. Hello dot upper dot lower. Lowercase everything. Lowercase everything. Only the last one matters. It changes it every time. What do the following expressions evaluate to? Remember, the 5th of November dot split.
It's an array consisting of remember.
That's right. So the first element in the list is going to be remember, comma. The second element in the list is going to be remember, comma, all lowercase. The third element is going to be the. The fourth element is going to be 5th. The fifth element is going to be of. And the sixth element is going to be November, period.
Don't you need to have commas if it's in a list?
Don't you need to have commas if it's in a list?
Doesn't split return a list the way join returns a string?
Yes, split is returning a list. That's right.
Well, then if you have a list, then how are you going to have 3 items without commas?
The three elements in the list may or may not have commas, but the list itself doesn't. We don't say the comma here, right? We say the this comma here. This is totally irrelevant. This is just part of constructing a list. This, you say, this is significant. This comma right here, this is something that Python is just using to display the list. It's not actually a part of the list. Python displays a list by putting in a comma.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. So we're creating a list, and I said the first element of the list should say remember, comma. The second element should say remember, comma. The third element should say the 5th of November, and then I added the period. You should have the period in there. Okay?
So that one's splitting a white space. Is there any way to split out each individual character? Or would I have to just do like a list operation?
You mean you want all of the characters in the list?
String, right?
I think none would work, right?
I think
That didn't work. That didn't work either.
Well, you can just address it as a character, right?
What's up?
You can just address it as a character, right?
Yeah, you could iterate through it and do it. But the question is, can split do it? You don't think so? Let's look at the help page. Help, string, right? There's nothing wrong with saying I don't know. I've never had to do that, right? So string, and then I'm going to look for split. And here's split. Split, separator equals none, max split equals 1. Returns a list of the words S using sep as the delimiter string. If max split is given, at most max split, if separator is not known or is none, any white space string is a separator and empty strings are removed from the result. So that is telling me that it's probably not possible with split. Let's see if there's something else that can return. You know what I bet will work? I bet if we feed it to the list constructor it works. Will that work?
Yeah, this was what
Haha, that's what you do. So you would take remember, the fifth of remember. If you wanted that all to be characters, you would just feed it all to list.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. In some languages, you do exactly what you intuitively thought, which is you provide split an empty string or a special null character, and it does that, right? But no, in Python, you feed it to list. Okay. What string methods can you use to right justify, left justify, and center a string? Boom. Well done. That's exactly right. How can you trim white space characters from the beginning or end of a string? Strip. That's it. Or R strip or left strip. Strip for fun. There we go. Table printer. Write a function named printTable that takes a list of characters and of strings and displays it in a well-organized table. I tell you what, I'm going to show you. We can do this too. This sounds like fun, but let's not do it just yet because I want to interject with my own lesson to correct something earlier. Right? So we're going to value add on this chapter, something that I think is important. We talked about here, and I promised I was going to come back to it, the multi-line comments, right? This is not just perfectly valid Python code. This is special Python code. So Python has something in it. When we see something, right, like if I do help string, all of this stuff is generated. There is something, the method that is generated is using a triple quote comment, right, a triple quote string at the very top of whatever you're declaring. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. When you create your own functions, you will be able to do something like this. I can say here, my function, right? And then I can say x, and then I can come down here, def, my function. I just created a function. Can everyone see that? And the first line of that function is a triple quote string, right? Now what that means is that when I look at the help for that, you're going to see that under the help. So if I go help my function, you see right here, hello HLUG, this is documentation. Right? So when they say that it's a comment, when they call it a comment, it's not strictly true. Because this is the mechanism Python uses to document everything. And as you start to become Python programmers and you're giving back, or other people have the misfortune of learning the code that you use to learn Python, this is going to be tremendously instrumental in their ability to understand that Python code that you've written. Because anytime you create something like a function, or in later lessons we're going to cover classes, anything that you're creating that starts with a block, that triple comment, the triple quote string that the book is calling a comment, that you write about your code in, that's what help is looking for when you type in help whatever. And everything is like that. So when I say help string, all of this stuff right here, this is in a triple quoted comment. This is the triple quoted comment for the string class. So somewhere in Python there's something called str.py, and inside of str.py you have this stuff right here. Right? Yes?
Can you have multiple triple quote comment blocks around a function, or like inside of a block? Like for instance, you comment something, you're doing some code, you add another comment block, you're doing some code, and if you were to type help on the program, would it list all of the comment blocks or just the first one?
It's a really, really good question. I have never done it, and I don't know the answer. So here's what I could say. Let's try it, right? Def my function, we're going to add it, hello HLUG, this is documentation. This is a test of a second block. Now I'm going to add my return statement, return x, help my function. Nope, only the first one is significant. So I just wanted to be sure I clarified that, because I thought that was, the book was clearly wrong in that, in my opinion, or it didn't say enough on it, and that is tremendously useful. Okay, table printer. So now what we have is we have this table data, and table data includes all of these different rows, right? So everyone knows the difference between a row and a column. Rows go left to right, columns go up to down. This is one column, this is one column, this is one column, this is one column, this is one row, this is the second row, this is the third row, right? What we want to do is we want to pretty print this crap right here, right? So we want to pretty print it such that with the right justified, and we don't want this to be overly long, right? So we're trying to figure it out. So what we have to do then is we're going to need to iterate through each different row and figure out what the longest length is for the column that we're on, right? That makes sense to everyone? So here's what we're going to do. Let's copy table data. Here. Now I'm going to say here for each for row in table data. Now I have a row. I'm going to say for column in row. Now I have a column. Now what I want to do is, hold on a second, no, because I need to know what column I have, right? So for simplicity's sake, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say for each column in length, no, range length, right? Just like we did before. We want to have the index number. Table data 1, 2, 3, and then yes. Okay, max lengths. And now what I'm going to do is say max length dot max length dot column index equals length of row okay, and then this has got to be, we have to check here if it's bigger. So if oh, come on. And what I want to do is max length, call IDX. Okay, will that work? Any idea, Robert? We're trying to figure out the maximum length of each different one here. So for this one, I want it to say 6, right? Because apples is longer than Alice's, which is longer than dog, so I need to know that I'm going to right pad this one 6 characters. You have to pad out each different column and each different row. That's the assignment. So for each row in table data, this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the third row. I need to look over each different column inside of it, and I need to say, is the maximum length that I have recorded for that column, if it's less than the current row's column length, I need to update it. Okay, let's try that. And then print max length. Does that make sense? Is that going to work?
Looks like it could work.
List index is out of range. Where's the problem? Oh, remove, that's not the problem.
So max length is an empty array, and you're looking for a
Empty list. Yeah, you're trying to address an element that doesn't exist.
Oh, okay. So here, if this, so let me just put here, or max length, call IDX equals none, right? That's not it.
There's a certain function you call it exists.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that it?
So that's the error that it's giving me. So to find out if something is set in the array, we would do a okay. Index. Return the first index value of that. No. What is the existence test in Python? Defined? It's not showing it. Here's what we can do. This is even easier. Max length equals, we'll just say this, table data, 1. That should work. Or 0. Delete this.
You need the first element of the first row. Under the first word.
What's up?
Why not use a dictionary of indexes?
A dictionary of indexes. That's another option?
Column numbers.
That's on the year.
Yeah.
We learned in the last class.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So here we create a dictionary, and what we're going to do here is say max length, and then what we're going to do is it's dot set. No. I just want to, what's the method to search inside of the, yeah, but in works for the element itself. I want to know the index. Let's actually hold off on this one. Let's come back and we'll do this one next week, and we'll figure out this answer. I don't want to do the dictionary method. What do you mean it's type?
You do type of the thing and it gives you none.
Is that all that I was missing from the code that I wrote? The type thing?
I think that's what it is.
Okay, let's give that a shot.
Alright, check it.
So you're saying that right here I forgot type. Type this equals none.
I don't feel like initialization.
No. E for effort. Let's figure that out, because I'm curious on how to do that, and then we'll actually address that in the next class. I don't remember what the deal was with that. Element what is the keyword here? Index method?
On list.index value
Hold on, how do we do it? Value start stop, return the. So you're saying to test?
I'm answering your question about what's the
method defined.
Yeah. That was the question you asked, right? Given a value that's in a list, you want to find the index of that value?
I want to find out if a provided index exists in a list.
If the index exists at all?
Yeah.
Why not check the counter and see if it has any, if it contains any elements?
That's another idea. We could do that.
So just check if the index is less than the length.
So yeah, here. If length of max length is less than or the length of row let's give that a shot.
You want land instead of length.
Yeah. And then I'm going to delete the type stuff. That didn't work. All right. Boom. No? It says the less than or equal to is not supported between instances of string and int. Let me get rid of this. Hold on. Let's get rid of that because that was also, that idea didn't work either. List assignment index out of range. We're still getting that. Why is it doing that? Why can't...
Count or something like that.
That's what we are doing right here. Length of max length, right?
It's an array, so why not use its count method?
What is it? Because the count method is doing something, takes exactly one argument.
Are you in Discord?
Count is looking for how many things are inside of it. I think, right?
Yeah, but if it's empty or null, it should have nothing.
I'm confused. What do you want to see here? Max length dot count?
Yeah.
That's going to error.
No, max length.
Like that? That's going to error about count. See? Because count is trying to count how many things are inside of it. So if I have this like here, and I say A,
Evan,
what's up?
why don't you just create the array, but initialize it using the 0 times operator?
Create the array but initialize using...
Is the question to find
Yeah,
out?
have as many zeros in there as you do the length of your actual
Yeah.
row of columns.
The array 0 times.
You want to find the width of the widest string in this table? Is that it?
Yes, that's the goal.
For each column. The way I would do it is with the list comprehension and the max function.
There we go. That worked.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ed's idea worked. That gets us out of the bind. How would you say, though, how did you, because I'm interested in what you had to say. What did you have to say about it?
I would use the list comprehension and the max function. So the list comprehension would say...
But I didn't want to use list comprehensions. That's what comes to me intuitively, too. But I don't want to use list comprehensions because the book doesn't cover them at all. And it explicitly says in the first chapter of the book that it doesn't want to cover them. So I'm trying to avoid features that the book isn't teaching. In the last class, too, I had the same like little problem. You know, where I want to write everything in terms of a list comprehension or, you know, parallel list iteration, and the book is not letting me do any of that. Here's how you would do it in the book, though. And Ed helped us get through this bind. We take the 0, and we're actually creating an array that has 0 for all of these things in one row, right? Then what we're doing with it is we're saying for each row in table data, we want to iterate through each different row, and we're going to find out for each element in here, we're going to look, and we're going to say, is this element, the first element, is this greater than 0? And in this case, it is. Then the next iteration, we're going to say, is this element greater than the max length which we recorded from the first step? And if it is, then we're going to write that one down. Otherwise, we're going to go through this one and say, is this element greater than the length that we recorded from the max element of the first two? We're going to write that one down. Does that kind of make sense?
Evan, according to the assignment, the columns of the list are each going to be a sub, one of the sublists. Like apples, oranges, cherries, and bananas, that's a column.
Right.
So you want to know what the longest one is.
Oh, wait a second. That's a lot easier. Is that what they're telling you to do?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
So, Evan, when we were talking about the dictionary answer, you could just basically...
Oh, that is a lot easier. What's up?
If you wanted to go with the dictionary answer,
You can make each column key 1.
column the key of its index,
Yeah.
and then you just use set default.
That's one of the methods I was doing with the set default thing, too. The thing is, I don't remember if they covered set default in the class.
I did.
Awesome. There you go.
Stack Overflow also says you want to check to see if the list was empty. Just say if not, whatever the variable is. And if it failed or passed the test, then you know it's empty. Then you could have done your assignment.
But I don't want to see if it's empty. So the problem that I was having was, let me explain to you the problem so everyone understands where I was being stupid. And then if anyone wants to figure it out, the right answer in Python, I would love to know. The problem is that if I don't actually set them all equal to 0, right, then down here where I'm testing to see whether or not this element exists, that accessing of that element is throwing an error. So most languages have something like Robert said, like an exists feature, right? You can't access an element outside of the range to test if it exists, to test what it is. Ed?
Your index is basically, your index that you're
That's right, you get the error. Yeah, but the question is, how do you get around the error?
You just basically take the length of the array that you're assigning to, and then test to see if it's larger than the index that you're trying to into it.
That's one way to do it too. Yeah, that would also work. Yeah, so that makes. Do you see what the thing is? Was that also what you were suggesting?
Yeah, basically trying to figure out what the size of. Well, I wasn't trying to figure out the size of what's in the array just to see if it had any elements in it. If it was zeroed out, then obviously you handled it.
Right, but what if it has one thing? Then you still have to check the length, right? So yeah, that's another way to do it. There's two ways to solve this problem. The exist operator would be really nice if Python had that, and I'm inclined to think it does. I just don't know how to use it or where it is. Probably in the list module or something. So anyway, this works. Now here's the deal. This doesn't do at all what I thought, right? So someone actually pointed out that we are creating a problem that is more complex than the one we're trying to solve, which is valid.
Sometimes you wind up doing that.
And it is often the case, right? It's not, yeah, sometimes is an understatement. It seems like every time we do something. So here's what we did, right? I saw this, and I assumed when I did this, because no one corrected me, this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the third row. I assumed this was the first column, this was the second column, this was the third column. But if you look at the actual answer that they want, apples, oranges, cherries, bananas, you'll see that they're all here. Apples, oranges, cherries, bananas, right? So this is actually called major column order. And I thought it was major row order. So this is a list of the columns for the first, this is a list of all of the values for all of the columns for the first column. This is a list of all of the values for all of for the second column. This is a list of all of the values for the third column, right? So that's what we're doing. That is a ton easier. So if we come down here, all we have to do for that is we go for column in table data, right? We have to take the first one, max length. And now what we have to do here is we have to say, yeah, because you still have to store it. You have to iterate through it one time to figure out what the max length is, right? So the first time we're going to go through it, we have to say, is this longer than this? Is this longer than this? Is this longer than this? Then we have to have one number, and then we have to iterate it through it again and pad them all that length. Does that make sense? Is what we're trying to do? So for each column in table data, right, what I want to do is I want to say, or for each column in, so this is the list of the columns. Calls in table data. Let's get rid of this. Let's say here, max length is less than column. And max length equals length of column. Now they're supposed to be right padded, which is R align. R, it's not R pad in Python, it's R just. That's what they want. R just. Call.R just and then max length. Okay, will that work?
Will that cause a problem because you're doing a comparison between a number, an integer, and a string? Because each call is a string of that?
Each call is a string, but we turn it into a number right here, right?
You're doing on the test above, you're testing
Ah, yes, is less than the length of the column. There we go. Yep, that's right. Good catch. Okay, that actually is working. Now the only difference is we are printing with a new line and we don't want to print with a new line. So we want to do this print and then you say it's sep equals the character like that. Is that what they do in Python? Does the IDE tell you this? Yeah, but there's an argument you can provide to print. It's SCP, so just like I did, right? So why didn't that work?
Because each column was justified correctly.
But it's not printing. It's printing with a new line, right?
No.
Why is it printing with a new line if I do SCP?
You have to.
Oh, it's n equals space.
You're gonna have to.
What's a? Oh, it's not sep, it's end.
The separators between.
Okay, there you go. End, there you go. And now we have to have one more then at the end. There we go. Not quite.
Well, it's also
So change it into a space.
it's splicing the lines together on the print.
Apples or
You turn your column into rows again.
print. Is it turning the columns into rows? For each column in columns, print column.rjust. So we iterate the first time through this list, and we're going to get this. This is equal to cols. And then we say,
Iterate through the print separate from the figuring out the links.
what's up?
You need to do the
Yes.
from the links, which means your max length variable needs to be an array.
Yeah. Yeah, which means we got to rewrite the whole thing.
No, just figure out the print.
Rewrite the print. How am I going to rewrite the print? We're iterating it right now.
Okay, sorry. You make max length an array,
Right.
and
We're pushing the length to max length as well.
and you'll need to do it for each. Yeah.
Okay.
But
So,
this line, so that's
all right.
So
Then we say, I don't think it's going to be that easy, guys. Print max length. Boom. It's not. Let's do this some other time. Let's come back. Let's come back. Because I'm about to rewrite this whole thing in a list comprehension where it's easier. What's up?
Multiply the array by.
you have to index max length by the which column or
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I'm back to doing the iteration with the length and the number, and then I'm back to figuring out again, how do I figure out if the thing is empty, or going back to the zero model. I could control Z all the way back to add zero model. That was the last working point that we had. But yeah, we have to rewrite it because the original way that we did it was going row-wise, and we need to go column-wise. And now we're at the back of the scrollback buffer. Yeah. We'll figure this out before next class. I'm not going to live code this. Not enough coffee.
I'm going to give you 15 minutes to go figure it out.
I'll figure it out over the phone. All right, very cool. Hit it, give it a shot. Give us a shot back next time. And someone figure out how to test for extra bonus points whether or not an index exists in a Python array, because that's what's stinging us, without doing the list comprehension method.
Maybe with race balls, right?
Yeah. Okay.